Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. It's Friday, February 26th, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-kyun. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. It's V-Day in South Korea, and President Moon Jae-in visited a health center in Seoul's Mapogu district to oversee the first inoculations taking place. The first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines are being rolled across the country, mainly in health centers and nursing facilities. There's no first recipient as inoculations began simultaneously at 9 a.m. In South Korea's Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun announced that the current social distancing guidelines will stay for 2 more weeks, keeping them in place until March 14th. We begin with the V-Day in South Korea. South Korea has kicked off its highly anticipated nationwide COVID-19 vaccination program with the first shots administered around an hour ago. President Moon Jae-in also visited a local health center to see the first person there to get the vaccine. For details, we have our presidential office correspondent Kim Min-ji joining us live from the Blue House. Min-ji, tell us more about the president's visit.
Right, Mo-kyun, President Moon Jae-in visited a health center in Mapogu district in Seoul to oversee the first inoculations. COVID-19 vaccinations started nationwide today at 9 a.m. Korea time just about an hour ago. President Moon Jae-in looked around the vaccination zone within the health center and was briefed on the preparations before he saw the first person get his jab. The first recipient there was 60-year-old Kim Yoon-tae, a doctor at a nearby hospital. Kim was required to fill out a questionnaire and received a preliminary medical checkup with another doctor on his health condition to see whether he was fit for the vaccine, part of which was broadcast live. After he received his shot, President Moon accompanied him while he waited for any possible side effects for around 15 to 30 minutes. We don't have details on their conversation yet, but they are expected to have talked about the vaccine's safety and efficacy and the need for medical staff to be quickly vaccinated to protect patients. The top office says the president's visit was aimed at encouraging people in South Korea that we will be able to get our daily lives back to normal through swift and safe vaccinations. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Mo-kyun.
Thank you for that, Min-ji. We appreciate it. Now, like we've heard, vaccinations are happening across the nation. Some 289,000 healthcare workers and patients under the age of 65 at nursing hospitals and care facilities will receive their first jab, and this is the first round of the AstraZeneca vaccinations. Over in Bundang, south of Seoul, the vaccinations have also kicked off. Now, let's connect to our Kim Do-yeon, who is at one of the nursing centers there. Do-yeon, have vaccinations begun where you are?
Good morning, Mo-kyun. I'm at the vaccinating zone of the Babith Memorial Hospital in Korea, where it's a major hospital in Korea with both nursing care center and a rehabilitation center. As you can see behind me, the vaccination has started here as well. Just after 9 a.m., 7 containers of AstraZeneca's vaccines arrived here with the military and police escort. Now, that was a slight delay, but it was no problem for this hospital to get everything started right away. The doctors, nurses, and of course the needles were all in place, and the recipients were all lined up with their screening questionnaires done. Among the first jabs at this hospital was for the chief of the patient safety department, and the team plans on continuing until the evening to get as many done as possible. 650 people signed up for the vaccination at this hospital. Now, this is just one of around 1,900 locations that's getting the first batch of supplies right now.
Now, Do-yeon, like you've explained, can you tell us more about what's happening in other places across the country?
Mo-kyun, everyone in the country is hoping to see some light at the end of the tunnel, as this is the first step taken towards the herd immunity. The very first shot of the country went to Miss Lee Kyung-sun, a 61-year-old care person from Nowon-gu District Health Center in Seoul. But at 9 a.m., vaccination spots across the country all started their rollout. This first set of supplies are AstraZeneca's vaccines that have been manufactured here in South Korea. About 1.57 million vaccine doses, enough to inoculate 785,000 people, are being delivered across the country and are under heavy security. Again, the first group to get the shots will be the residents and workers of nursing care and rehabilitation centers aged 65 or younger. Of those, more than 93% have signed up for the jabs. While a lot of people do worry about negative reactions, the authorities say AstraZeneca's vaccines are safe and all recipients are to remain at the vaccination spot for 15 to 30 minutes afterwards to make sure there are no severe allergic reaction to the vaccine. That's all I have for you at this hour. Back to you, Mogyan.
Thank you, Toya, please keep us updated. Now, in the meantime, South Korea is also fine-tuning its cold chain storage process for the Pfizer vaccines, which will arrive later today and begin inoculations on Saturday. Much focus is on the ultra-cold warehouse in BioNTech, where all the Pfizer vaccines will be stored. The center says Friday's batch could be transported straight to the vaccination centers, given the relatively small amount. But the following batches will also go through the storage center. Our Lee Kyung-eun tells us more.
This ultra-cold storage center in BioNTech, Gyeonggi-do Province, was originally used to store imported tuna. But since last October, the center has been emptying out its stock to prepare for the arrival of the Pfizer vaccines, which need to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius.
This is the only facility in South Korea capable of generating such ultra-cold temperatures, so all the incoming Pfizer vaccines must be stored here, unless they're transported directly from the airport to the vaccination centers.
Some 800 square meters of floor space have been allocated for enough Pfizer vaccines to inoculate some 10 million people. So I'm fully kitted out in protective gear to go inside the storage and see just how cold it is. Right now, the mercury is pointing at minus 73.6 degrees Celsius. Here, I have wet towels, and as soon as I pull this out, the water quickly freezes stiff. And it is extremely hard to breathe even with this mask on. The center runs on liquefied natural gas and uses minus 162 degrees extreme cold air generated using a phase change technique while transforming LNG from its liquid state into gas. Compared to using electricity, this can reduce costs by up to 80%. Anyone entering the container can stay no longer than 10 to 15 minutes due to the possibility of lung damage. So the vaccines are taken out of storage and packaged in a separate section in milder conditions. That's where the center will also be stocking Moderna and other vaccines which require less extreme temperatures. The mRNA vaccines, like those by Pfizer and Moderna, will be stored in super freezers, which will be installed at the 250 vaccination centers nationwide.
South Korea has decided to extend the current social distancing measures for 2 more weeks. The country also reported 406 new COVID-19 cases Friday, slightly up on the previous day. Now, for more on this, we have our Kim Jae-hee on the line for us. Jae-hee, give us more details.
Mogyan, despite the vaccination program kicking off in the country this morning, the South Korean Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun on Friday announced that South Korea will extend current social distancing guidelines by 2 more weeks to be in place until March 14th. The government has also decided to extend the ban on gatherings of 5 or more people for 2 more weeks.
There are sporadic cluster infections still popping up in our daily lives. The infectious reproduction index has exceeded 1 for 2 consecutive weeks, and an increase in outdoor activities as the new spring new semester begins is also a risk factor. Coronavirus variants is also a worrisome factor. Vaccination has begun in the country, but we have to go a long way to achieve herd immunity.
The Greater Seoul area is currently under Level 2 social distancing measures, and the remaining regions are under Level 1.5 measures. The associated rules have been in place since February 15th, following the Korean Lunar New Year holiday in the second week of February. The measures were supposed to end on February 28th, and new distancing measures were supposed to take effect starting March. Meanwhile, new virus cases nudged slightly above 400 on Friday. Of the daily new cases, 382 were locally transmitted and 24 were from overseas. This now brings the country's total caseload to 88,922. Most of the recent infections are from the Greater Seoul area. That is all I have at this hour, but I'll be back with more updates in our later newscast.
Thank you for that, Chehi. Now, elsewhere, a new study shows approximately 1 in 7 people in the UK have antibodies to COVID-19, while 91% of Pfizer vaccine recipients have them. Also, as Italy increases its vaccination rate, Israel looks to reopen its economy by April. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
According to the latest study into the effectiveness of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, roughly 1 in 7 people in the UK have developed antibodies to COVID-19. The study involved 154,000 subjects, including more than 17,000 who had received at least 1 dose. Further research also shows that 91% of people who received 2 doses of Pfizer's vaccine had developed antibodies, which rises to 95.5% in people under the age of 60. It added that those aged 80 and older had an 88% chance of forming antibodies. The youngest group, those 30 and under, had a very strong level of antibodies at 94.7% just 3 weeks after their first dose. Over in Italy, the country's virus czar has praised the country's vaccination program, noting that inoculations showed a comforting increase this week, averaging around 100,000 a day nationally. This comes as Italy's northern Lombardy region asked the national government Thursday for more vaccines to help stem a resurgence. Italy on Thursday added nearly 20,000 cases, the highest daily number since early January. Israel, which has been by far the most aggressive country when it comes to vaccinating its people, has announced its plans to reopen its economy in the near future.
In the 4th stage, at the end of March, our intention is to finish vaccinating the adult population over the age of 16. In April, our intention is to fully reopen. For sure, this depends on the level of infection, but if we all do what we should do, we can pass through this.
Last Sunday, Israel reopened many of its businesses, including leisure facilities, but only to those who have been immunized or for those who have recovered from COVID-19. The country has administered at least 1 dose of Pfizer's vaccine to nearly half of its 9 million population so far. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The United States has approved the storage of Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine at conventional freezer temperatures. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Thursday, frozen vials of the vaccine may be transported and stored in freezers commonly found in pharmacies with temperatures around -20 degrees Celsius. This is expected to ease the previous storage measures, which required vaccines to be stored at ultra-low temperatures between -80 and -60 degrees Celsius. In normal freezers, vaccines will only be allowed to be stored for up to 2 weeks. As the world continues to grapple with a rapid spread of new COVID-19 variants known to be more transmissible than the original, scientists have found a new variant in New York City. They warn it could threaten the city's progress on the pandemic. Our Kim Hyo-san reports.
Researchers have reportedly identified a new COVID-19 variant spreading rapidly in New York City, raising concerns that the mutation may weaken the effectiveness of the current vaccines. According to the New York Times and CNN, scientists at Columbia University first detected this new variant in the city last November. The team also found the variant has similarities with the South African strain, which is known to be more transmissible and more resistant to vaccines. Against such a backdrop, New York authorities stress that they'll do more research.
So we are able to detect and track this new strain that's been reported, and we'll continue to follow it. We have the ability also to now collect information about those patients and to understand better whether or not they have different features or outcomes.
As the emergence of new variants continue to pose threats to the international quest to combat the pandemic, U.S. public health experts are especially worried that the vaccines could become less effective as these mutations become the dominant strain. The director of the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy told CNN Thursday that the new variants could change the pandemic's trajectory in the country, leading to another massive outbreak by mid-March. Meanwhile, representatives of German pharmaceutical company CureVac told EU lawmakers Thursday that preliminary trials on animals of the company's COVID-19 vaccine candidate showed it to be effective against the UK and South African variants. Saying the trial results will be disclosed very soon, the firm added that the company expects its vaccine to be approved by the EU by June. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Good morning. Today is 정월 대보름, the day when we can see the first full moon of the lunar calendar. Well, it was a chilly start, but readings will rise fast, and by the afternoon, it's going to feel more like early April in most parts, so beware of big temperature differences and dress accordingly today. Yesterday's rain in the south helped to ease the dryness in the air, but central regions are still under dry weather advisories. Meanwhile, the south coast and Jeju are under strong wind advisories, so please be careful with anything that could start a fire. Jeju, however, will see up to 40 millimeters of more rainfall through the afternoon. And other than Chungcheong-namdo province, will have decent air quality with readings hovering in the mid-teens across much of the country. The warms will stay through the weekend, and nationwide rain on Monday should bring some much-needed relief from the dry air conditions. That's Korea for you, and here's the look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.